The worst winter that Europe has ever faced. Rolling blackouts, shuttered factories, nose-diving economy, and a deeper recession than ever. This will be Europe's fate if Russian President Vladimir Putin triggers his evil hybrid weapon he's been hiding and waiting for years to finally use. If Putin plays this card, it could actually push back the European countries into a deep, dark abyss in no time. All that has already been threatened, and to some extent, it's already been implemented. In this video, we'll tell you all about Russia's evil game plan and how it will impact the European continent and eventually you too. Now, before we get into it and get you all anxious, please enjoy this clip of a funny cat. Recently, the American bank JP Morgan has prophesied something that could be taken as an upcoming apocalypse for Europe. They said that if Russia completely halts its oil exports and stops the supply of natural gas, not only Europe but the world economy will face a massive shock. The price of oil is around $100 per barrel now. If Russia cuts the power cord, then this oil price will skyrocket to around $400 per barrel. Now, that's going to be a real catastrophe. And this is the dirty trick that Vladimir Putin is going to play now if the EU and NATO countries do not comply to buy gas on his terms. Now, the problem is that all European countries are heavily reliant on natural gas, as entire economies are built around it, not to mention the need for tens of millions of households to cook their meals or stay warm during the winter. So if Russia pulls the plug, then the economic setback will be so huge that the whole world will be affected, and the economic crisis will be far worse than anything that the world has ever seen. Even if you're not a European, you will also end up being affected by this crisis. This is a fear that all of the West is deeply concerned about, since the Russia-Ukraine war began this year and Putin started threatening the world quite dramatically. Now, to help you understand why Europe is at Russia's mercy, let's briefly walk you through some facts. So, Russia has tons of natural gas resources. In its coldest areas, deep under the snow, energy from plants and animals that have lived millions of years ago prevails within the cracks of rocks buried thousands of meters within the land. Now, from there, this energy is sucked up through a massive pipeline infrastructure that runs through the sea and land. And from there, this energy is supplied to the European continent, where it's used for industrial as well as domestic purposes. This is the same energy that's used to turn turbines for the production of electricity on this continent. So, a giant and extremely complicated network of pipelines links Russia with these countries. For decades, both parties remained in a mutually beneficial relationship where Russia earned billions by selling off its gas to these countries, and they continued building their economies and nations on the foundation of Russia's gas. Now, Russia is about to use these pipelines as a weapon in its war with Ukraine, officially, and the West unofficially. On one hand, Putin is using all the military, artillery, and other resources to invade Ukraine and conquest land in this war that he calls a special military operation. And on the other hand, he has his hand on the trigger of natural gas to threaten everyone who stands against him in this war. So this is not just all about land and all. The battle has affected energy markets, infrastructure, financial systems, and information and technology sectors too. See, when Russia attacked Ukraine, the superpowers in the world couldn't intervene directly because that could have risked the escalation of the situation between the nuclear powers. But they couldn't just sit as mere spectators too. So these countries that we call the West, which include many European countries as well as some NATO countries too, did something more detrimental than anything. To show their support for Ukraine, they did these two things. Number one, they tried to cut Russia off from a huge number of its economic ties to the world. The EU and its partners started working together to cripple Putin's ability to finance his warfare. Number two, they authorized millions of dollars worth to keep a steady flow of weapons and ammunition for Ukraine. The West has been pouring a huge amount of money and weapons and intelligence support and ammunition into Ukraine to help them fight this war. As per some reports, countries like Portugal sent around 10 million euros worth of military support to Ukraine. The US has spent millions and billions of dollars worth of advanced war and intelligent equipment, including helicopters, javelin, anti-tank missiles, thousands of shotguns, pistols, and whatnot, just to show Russia they don't agree with its invasion of Ukraine and the tactics of stealing land from other countries. Now, whether the West and the US are supporting Ukraine merely out of solidarity, having the best interests of Ukraine and its people in mind, or they have other hidden agendas is a topic for another video. But for now, the obvious thing is that Russia didn't like this move from the West, so Putin started threatening to use nuclear weapons and all, but that's not the only thing he's going to do. He's going to weaponize natural gas now as a war machine. He's already been weaponizing fossil fuel for years, but in July this year, as a retaliatory move, he started this movement by temporarily cutting off the gas supply to these countries via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, citing it as a routine maintenance procedure due to a gas leakage. The crisis deepened when Gazprom, Russia's state-owned gas company, claimed that the problem could not be fixed because of sanctions limiting the dealings between Russia and the EU. The EU, especially Germany, called it out as some sort of energy blackmail. And, well, they were right, because this was Putin's one way of showing Russia's adversaries their place and giving them a reality check too. Although this particular incident was for a short period, the European countries got seriously worried because Putin's government has the highest stakes in the biggest gas company in Russia. This gives all the leverage to none other than Vladimir Putin against all the West, because he literally has the power to shut off the gas supply completely, if he wants. And this is what he has slowly started aiming at too. He's already started choking off Europe's gas supply little by little, since the summer of 2021 by cutting off gas shipments to Europe, demanding they pay in rubles if they want to get Russian gas. And as a consequence, this drove the price of gas to hike up like crazy. So now you know that Russia has been earning billions of dollars by selling off its oil and gas over all these years. But now with the hyped up prices, who do you think is benefiting the most? Yes, Russia. And that is Vladimir Putin's massive card that can crumble the entire state of affairs for all these countries in the West. Well, to be objective here, you can say that the West is at fault too. They were satisfied with building their economic empires on Russian gas instead of finding a solution to get rid of their dependency on Russia, and thus prevent being held hostage by Putin like they are right now. And that was a big mistake. Don't you think? Anyway, the price of oil and gas is set internationally, and needless to say, the major supplier that is Russia is the most dominant player in this market. Now, since the world's supplies are already limited, any cut from Russia will insanely hike up the prices to what JP Morgan predicts to reach stratospheric levels. The US are not so heavily dependent on Russia for gas because they have their own supplies too, but that's not the case for Europe, especially the German and Italian industries are going to be crushed under the weight of extremely high energy costs. There are so many sectors where natural gas is the key, like forging steel to make cars, manufacturing glass bottles, and even the pasteurization of milk and cheese needs gas. You may ask why companies cannot switch to other energy sources such as fuel oil or electricity for heat production. See, the problem is that it's not easy for companies to switch overnight to another source of energy. Besides, everyone else is looking for alternative methods, so the prices of fuel oil and coal have also skyrocketed. Also, gas is the key fuel to generate electricity. Therefore, a lack of gas means a lack of electricity, or extremely expensive electricity that's unimaginable for these countries in the long run. Trust me, thousands of companies can go bust and millions of people would become jobless. In short, the economy of these countries can crumble to shambles in no time. And not only the industrial sector will get affected, but the domestic sectors will also get deeply impacted. The higher costs of gas will result in restricted usage, and that in turn will result in so many problems that you can only imagine. Especially in the upcoming winters, if Putin pulls off the plug on its gas resources for these countries, you cannot even imagine how life will become unsustainable, because millions of people will not be able to afford extremely expensive gas for cooking or even warming up their homes. You know, there's enough trouble for some European countries already. Because of drought, France and Germany are facing problems with their hydroelectric power supply from the rivers and reservoirs. Analysts are speculating that Europe will face low wind generation and almost a 15% cut in gas usage this winter. So if Russia also cuts off natural gas completely, just imagine how much worse the condition will get. Europe might face medieval times this winter all over again. Now you may wonder, is it going to be okay for Russia? Because by cutting off the gas supply, they're making enemies all over the world and they're losing their customers too, right? But, well, it's Russia we're talking about. They've created a sufficient buffer of cash to counter this matter and help them sustain themselves financially, even without all these billions of dollars from Europe in exchange for gas. Besides, oil is their main source of income, and even if the gas pipelines are shut off, oil can still be exported through tankers all over the world. And ironically enough, at the end of the day, the majority of the countries will be buying oil from Russia only because they're selling it at cheaper rates as compared to some other markets. So you see, Russia isn't losing anything here. What do you think Europe should do now? Let us know your views in the comments section below.